for joining BioStrategy Partners Practical Knowledge Series, where this month we're going to be discussing incubators, accelerators, and more, where to locate your life science startup. BioStrategy Partners is a nonprofit organization that is dedicated to advancing research from academic institutions to the industry. Today, we are very excited for our panelists, and we'll be introducing them in a moment. But I also, before I turn you over to Sri, I would like to thank our sponsors, which include MVM Associates that helps with all of your tax credit needs, Caesar Reviz with intellectual property, and Universe Place Associates. Thank you. Sri?
Thank you, Erica. My name is Sri. I am with Franklin Technology Partners. In this session, we would like to give you a quick overview on incubator, accelerators, and early stage funding in the Philadelphia region. With this, I would like Audrey to make the introduction.
Thank you so much, Sri, and it's great to be here with Lou, my partner at the Discovery Labs on our incubator. I'm Audrey Greenberg, co-founder, executive managing director, and board member for the Discovery Labs. We have a 1 million square foot facility in King of Prussia where we're creating a 700,000 square foot CDMO in that space. We also have next door 600,000 square feet of lab and R&D space. We plan to have an incubator on site at the Discovery Labs in partnership with Lou Casa, and hand it over to him.
Sure, yeah, I'm Lou Casa. I'm the Executive Vice President and Chief Operating Officer for 3 nonprofits that are all related. The first one, of course, is the Pennsylvania Biotechnology Center. It's one of the most successful life sciences incubators in the country. It is managed by the Barack Blumberg Institute, which is a research institute mainly focusing on liver cancer and hepatitis B. And of course, our parent organization is the Hepatitis B Foundation, which is a very impactful public policy and advocacy organization.
So at Ben, we do early stage funding and provide capital, connection, and counsel to the startups. And we work with all the region's incubators, providing and working with the startups and provide them early stage funding and take to the next steps. So I would ask Audrey and Lou to discuss more about their partnerships and then a little bit more about the trends they are seeing in the incubator space.
Sure. So our partnership at the Discovery Labs, and I'll let Lou describe it more, is basically we're starting with a 30,000 square foot incubator where we plan to have life science startups, everything from a bench all the way up through a floor in one of our buildings. We have 13 interconnected buildings. Some of the trends that we've seen are just the general lack of lab space nationally, and in particular in Philadelphia, we have one of the lowest vacancy rates in the country when you compare our location to all the other life science hubs. And there is a tremendous need for early manufacturing space as well. People want to, it's all about speed to market in life science in terms of getting to IND and then beyond and first in human. We're trying to marry up at our location with Lou and some of our tenants on site, adherence to a certain platform and technology early in development so that as they go through clinical trials and through the commercialization process, it speeds that effort.
Sure, and at the Pennsylvania Biotechnology Center, when we talk about speed, we have a very focused platform. It's 8 or 9 ingredients that we believe no other incubators in the country have all 8 or 9. They may have a few of those ingredients, but it really focuses on, we do have a nonprofit managing it, where most incubators are either run by universities or for-profit companies, which is fine, but I think it really makes our approach very unique. We focus on an ecosystem, and in that ecosystem, the buzzword throughout most of the life sciences hubs is co-working space. We really focus on co-collaboration. So it's not first come, first serve off the street if a company's coming into our incubator. It's really how can they co-collaborate with other companies within our ecosystem. We add in academic entrepreneur programming, turnkey, common equipment. It really expedites the process. So one of the statistics that was done about a year ago from an auditing company where they looked at our success. We've had about $2 billion worth of value created in Doylestown. They looked at the time of acquisition and IPO in our model. So the national average is about 8 years in life sciences of acquisition IPO. In our Doylestown model, it's approximately 3.5 years. So when we talk about moving things forward, accelerating, we believe by replicating this model at the Discovery Labs location, it'll be a great fit. And what I'm really excited about when we're talking about trends, a lot of incubators will have maybe some pre-incubator common lab space. Some people call it accelerator, where it's a lot of bench space where people share. At the Discovery Labs location, I believe it's going to be one of the first, or at least in this area, where you can go from bench space to incubation to graduate to manufacturing. So all on one campus. So I think that's very exciting and something that we look forward to doing with you guys.
Yeah, and I'd like to also say one thing that life science startups, and any startup for that matter, are very focused on is efficient use of capital, right? And to the extent that you don't have to spend your capital in building space or on buying equipment, one really exciting aspect of being in an incubator is that you're able to rent that, right? And use it as part of your membership. In addition, when you're looking at, as you continue to grow as a company and you're getting through various clinical trials, people often go through the buy versus build decision in terms of, do we do our manufacturing in-house? Do we outsource to a CDMO? And that also plays to the efficient use of capital. And one other thing I'll say is that makes our site also unique, in addition to all the things that Lou mentioned, we are a former GSK research and development facility. And what does that mean? There was a tremendous amount of capital spent on the infrastructure on the site. We have a dual grid electric feed, we have a backup generator plant, and tremendous infrastructure throughout the campus that, if replicated, would cost a lot of money for some of these startups. So you get that as part of your membership or included with your rent on the campus.
So can you mention some of the advantages of Philadelphia compared to Boston and San Francisco?
Sure.
Yeah.
Part of I guess it's either a hobby, a passion, or I've been at the Pennsylvania Biotech. Maybe I'm crazy, but I've been to over 30. I lost track after 30 incubator visits. So whenever I do travel, it's pretty much a hobby of mine to go visit, see what's out there in the market. And every incubator I've gone to, I've picked up at least one item that I brought back either to Doylestown or something that's added to our model. And what's really going on right now is a shift in dedicated, I would call incubation as dedicated lab space, and then accelerators as having more of a common approach. And out at Mission Bay Capital in San Francisco, as an example, they basically have 200-yard warehouses where it's just bench space, and you rent just the bench space, and the common equipment is around the core of the lab. I think that's a model, especially out on the West Coast, that they can put a lot of companies in one spot. But I think as we're looking at what I've seen in my experience with incubation, it's best to have maybe some of that, but not have your whole incubator based on common benches. So we were looking at the Discovery Labs location and having maybe a 2,000 to 3,000 square foot common area where we can have people coming in after work off the streets just to work on bench space, but we're also going to have the traditional dedicated lab space. So I think that's really important. And then when you look at some of the incubators, especially up in Boston and Cambridge, as Audrey mentioned, the vacancy rate in Cambridge right now is 0.08. So there's no room. And I really think as a region right now, the greater Philadelphia region, there is a great opportunity to capture some of the companies from Cambridge and Boston and come down here. And I've actually had a couple of them already call, and what they're telling me is, you guys have the talent, which we do. And as I like to say this one statistic, within about a 2-hour drive of Philadelphia is 70% of all pharma. So we have the talent. And then the other thing is, when you look at the rates, we are a third of what it's costing Cambridge and Boston. So I really think there's an opportunity, not just what we have going on here in the city and the suburbs, which is phenomenal. I think, when I talk to people in New York City and Boston and San Francisco, they're seeing more activity in the Philadelphia region than ever before. So it's a very exciting time that if we can maybe get some help from our state and local officials and really campaign, Philadelphia can continue to be a major hub.
Yeah. And Select Greater Philadelphia, which is run by Matt Cavery, is a great organization. As life science companies come through this area and they're deciding whether to locate here or, in some cases, other locations, not just nationally but internationally, some of the selling features that I've heard and been privy to have included proximity to an international airport, and our international airport also happens to have cold chain storage, which is extremely important for some of these products as they're manufactured and gone through clinical trials. Second, as Lou mentioned, the huge amount of talent in this area, up to 30,000 life science employees in this area. An enormous patient population in terms of eds and meds. To the extent that you're conducting trials or you want access to a patient population, we offer that as well. And then, like Lou said, just the affordability of the area and the thriving suburbs, I think, are very interesting as well. The fact that there's a tremendous amount, I don't know what percentage of the 70% is in the suburbs, but I would imagine a great portion of it. And if you look at PhDs, which are the ones that are often working in these companies, by the time they graduate and have some work experience, we're talking about maybe 30, 35, maybe 40 years old. Those individuals often have children, and what's important to those individuals is education, and we happen to have some of the best public schools in the country. So there's a lot of incredible offerings to this area, including price, talent pool, proximity to international airport, and the affordability factor.
And I can touch base on the student component too. I've been to a lot of university incubators, and there's really not a whole lot of student involvement. And one of the key ingredients of our model is having as many academic affiliations as possible, because when I sit down with the companies over the summer once a year and say, hey, what can we do better as an incubator? What services can we provide? They always mention having students on site. So we have a high school program up in Doylestown, which it's advanced chemistry for the Central Bucks School District, where 29 students come on site every day, and they take their class and they do experiential learning in world-class research labs. It's an amazing program. We also have graduate level master's programs on site. I think having an incubator model where you incorporate that learning environment with the companies, it's beneficial for both parties. So I think that's something that when we're talking about trends in the industry, that's very important, is continuing not just to have a Penn incubator, which just does a great job, but how can we get the students involved so that we're training that next level of talent to help work in the industry.
Yeah, there's a lack of knowledge right now in terms of cell and gene therapy manufacturing because it's so novel and cutting edge. Unfortunately, that means you have to grow a lot of the talent as opposed to procure a lot of the talent. And part of that we'd like to have on our site is a lab where people learn how to do some of these cutting edge techniques, and including interacting with bioreactors and both on the upstream and the downstream process.
So I guess we have now Jefferson Institute of Bioprocessing.
Yes.
Yeah, that would be a very good
that's a great
resource.
example.
In the cell space, like Silicon, likely fits the Silicon Valley. Are you working with them as you make plans for building the manufacturing?
Yes, we would love to partner with them. We're in conversations with the Jefferson Institute of Biotechnology. They've replicated a model that exists in Europe, which we also want to go see. Essentially, it's a hands-on, for those that don't know, a hands-on learning environment in the cell and gene therapy space for advanced therapeutics, in terms of allowing people to have hands-on training in using some of the machines and doing some of the processes as drugs get commercialized and go through various phases of clinical development. We've gone to visit their site, and I've heard many of the people speak at lectures, and they've also come to visit us. And I think that is going to be a game changer for this area, and I'm a huge supporter of it. I don't know, have you been out there?
Yeah, I have. I mean, it's tremendous having those types of relationships. And once again, looking at the whole space, I think it's great that we have the project that's going on here at it's BioStrategy. University Place, UPA. Phenomenal what's going on. We just saw kind of the lay of the land, what's going on at Discovery Labs, Schuylkill Yards, Pennovations 2, Springhouse. I think it's a really big industry, and as far as lab space goes, the more we can get involved and the more successful, I think it's going to draw money towards the Philadelphia area, which we'll all benefit from. And I also think as we're seeing more academic technologies come out and go into spinning into companies, we're going to need more and more lab space. So I think it's really setting the environment for us to expand and grow.
Yeah, that's a great point.
And I guess one of the factors is finding the talent in Boston and San Francisco. It is so much saturated and the costs are so much high. Definitely Pennsylvania and Philadelphia makes it better case for establishing the companies here because of the talent and the cost of living factors. So you are also planning to work with the universities to help them spin some of the companies at the very early stage. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think, and there's a statistic out there, about 75% of the research that the state of Pennsylvania gives goes to towards universities. So there's a lot of IP, and we're in an intellectual property, just so rich right here with Penn and Drexel and Temple and Jefferson. There's so many opportunities. But a lot of that technology, I want to use the term, stays on the shelf. A lot of it, either there's so much of it they can't commercialize all of it. Maybe the budgets aren't ready to commercialize. Maybe they don't know how to commercialize. So what we're trying to offer more is academic. We actually have an academic entrepreneur program where we'd like to partner with universities. We've already spoken to 3 or 4 and have this relationship in place. But we have the know-how, and we can either take the technology and bring it up to Doylestown or Discovery Labs, spin it out. We have seed funding available. So this is a $5 million academic entrepreneur fund called Big C Life Sciences out of our Doylestown location. We'd love to work with the universities to accelerate those technologies and make sure that it's a win-win situation for the universities and for the professors or the IP, the inventors, to succeed. So we're really excited about that program, and I think there's so much IP just in Philadelphia region, and then if you would include Princeton, part of the pharma belt, I think there's a lot of opportunity.
So we actually have a question from our chat room.
Okay.
Oh, interesting.
So a researcher is asking if they are looking to take their technology and spin it out of the academic institution, what should they do next? Like, how do they engage you?
I'll give you my business card. Obviously, they can contact directly. We just launched the academic entrepreneur program literally 2 to 3 weeks ago. So we're now going out to universities. As I said, we've met with a few of them. There's actually a tech transfer conference next month that we're going to be involved in. So yes, we're going to be publicizing and probably doing more PR regarding this. But just as a start, they could use my contact and information to, we'd love to hear from them.
Yeah, and Ben Franklin, we usually we provide early stage funding, and companies in the life science space, we advise them to start with the SBIR and get as much as non-dilutive funding possible, right, and do some de-risking. We also have a few programs. We just have started this program called PRIMA, which is funded by EDA, which is if we pull together service providers from the region and help these startups to achieve their quick milestone that could be helpful in presenting to the VCs to achieve a quick experiment by using this funding. Mm-hmm. And the project could be like 20 to 25,000, a small SBIR project, and can get some data where they can be, it could be helpful to present to the VCs. Apart from that, we have the early stage TAP loan, Technology Acceleration Fund. This could be up to 75,000, and we want to see that the company has skin in the game. So we ask for match for every dollar we invest. So again, this could be, they could bring the SBR money, which could be considered as a match. And then once we see that, as the company makes progress and achieve their milestones, we come up with our next round of investment, where we can go up to 300,000 to 500,000. But we would, especially in the life science space, 500,000 will be just consuming in doing a one animal study. So we want to see that other investors also are involved along with us, which could help us to fund them as they make progress.
And that's right. We have a great relationship with Ben Franklin, and they're doing a phenomenal job. And so there's a lot of discussion between us, quite a bit about either co-investing or teaming up. So once again, I think the approach in this region has been great because it hasn't been people kind of in silos. We have a lot of events like this. We have a lot of get-togethers and networking. And I think everyone's really working together for the greater good of the region, because I really believe, if the region does well, we all do well.
Right.
So yeah, there's a lot of opportunities for the academic entrepreneurs out there.
Yeah, and what I really loved about what you said was that, achieving key de-risking events so that you have non-dilutive funding and getting that funding up front in the form of a grant. And I think it's great that you guys are helping these early entrepreneurs conduct some of these.
We'd like to see more investment. We see, I think the report just came out regarding the space. We would like to see more investors that could invest along with us. That would be really a big win. Yep. And again, this Prima grant, the whole idea is to help the company at the very early stage to achieve the key milestones.
Yeah. And although our absolute number may be a little bit lower than some other key clusters internationally or in the US, our growth is almost number one in terms of the Philadelphia region. I think we had a huge amount of growth in the last 18 months, 500%. So that trajectory should continue, and we'll see a lot of fun things happening here. Sorry.
So I was thinking for the researchers that we have on the line, understanding that the EDA grants, the SBI grants are a little different than your traditional NIH grants. Is there any support in this region to help investigators with those grants?
Well, I mean, with the as I said, the Big C Life Sciences Academic Entrepreneur Program, we are, the business consultation side is something we do very well. So 18% of all SBIR grants in the state of Pennsylvania currently go to our Pennsylvania Biotechnology Center. So we have a very, very high hit rate, and it is part of the funding mechanism because it's non-dilutive. So we think with our program, getting the technology and making a deal with the inventor and the university, getting the SBIR, we were going to provide out of the $5 million fund anywhere from $250,000 to $300,000 of seed money. But also, I think the most important thing is providing that business consultation. We know people, and I know Ben Franklin, that knows how to commercialize and get you through this first 2 to 5 years, which could be the most difficult. I don't know if you wanted to add anything.
One thing I'd like to say just while we're waiting for questions from the chat room is, piggybacking on one of your earlier questions, Sri, about, early stage companies and where they can go for resources. We sort of have, at Discovery Labs, we have 3 legs of the stool. The first leg is obviously our real estate and the fact that we own the asset. The second leg of the stool is the CDMO, which I talked about, and we do very early through commercialized work. The third leg of that stool is an overlap with the incubator in that we are planning to have an offering where you pay a fixed dollar amount to help your company get through IND stage. And we'll help you for a fixed price to get, depending on what work you've done already, get you through that in a certain fixed time period, and we guarantee that time period. So we're excited to provide that offering, and certainly can work through it for anyone that's interested.
That really helps to for our name of Silicon Valley.
Yes.
Having this resource. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
So Lou, I want to ask you, do you vet these companies that are trying to get a space to your facility? Or?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, just from the basic incubator and what we're doing at both sites is really interviewing the companies. We ask for their business plan, the market, what's going on with the market with their discovery. And then we try to see if they would be able to co-collaborate or if there's synergies between what they're bringing in and what the ecosystem will look like. And I think the ecosystem, as it did in Doylestown, we've been there for 12 years, it kind of has organically created and morphed into what it is now. It was originally a liver cancer, hepatitis B. Now we have a lot of small molecules and translational research, but there's some diagnostic companies there, cell therapy. We have 2 dry eye disease companies. So really looking, having a really, I don't want to say strict, but having a process in place that when the companies come in, that they're going to fit kind of your ecosystem, and how will they co-collaborate? How will they work well with others? I think that's one of the magic parts of our model.
Yeah. And then in addition just to that synergistic effect and ecosystem of bringing these companies together, not to bring up something negative, but we also want to be very careful of intellectual property protection. And there's been a lot of recent current events that where data is being stolen or information technology is being pilfered, and we definitely are putting in place and have in place a screening process for IP protection in terms of a thorough background check and understanding any possible conflicts of interest and affiliations, and have a very thorough screening process for that as well.
Cybersecurity, speaking in the biotech space, is a huge problem. We get hit thousands of times a week, and about 2 years ago we had a significant breach. So yeah, it's something that I'm sure everyone's aware of it, but it's very important. And also having best practices of having a really top-notch IT or cybersecurity expert to have a server and to have a cloud service, having both. Because you can be corrupted at any time. So yeah, it's a very big issue.
Yeah, we look at it really from 3 views. One is obviously physical security. Our campus is large, so we're going to have extensive physical security in terms of segregation and authorization and access. And then the second, obviously, is cyber, as Lou mentioned, and having double encryption and very important firewalls that are in place to prevent hacking and the like. And then the third is what I talked about a little bit earlier from an HR perspective, and properly screening individuals and companies for that matter making sure that we have the right mix, not just in the incubator, but on the campus as an overall presence.
So we have another question from the chat room. It says, how does a company pick an incubator? Is there a common website to find features of each incubation site?
That's a great question.
It is a
They're
great
all
question.
they're all different, and being so many of them, it all depends on what's the best fit for your company. Once again, speaking from ours, I'm a little biased, but I think we're really focused on the services. So when you look at most incubators, they're run basically by for-profit, so it's a landlord-tenant relationship. And I think what's really important, and I think what was great meeting with Discovery Labs and Audrey and Brian O'Neill, was they saw right away that it's not just about the building. And the buildings look great, and believe me, you need to have nice looking buildings. We really focus on what's inside the building, the services in the building. So our whole program and platform is based on getting people together, networking, talking, so that you can have that co-collaboration, especially in science. I mean, it's one of those industries where the more collaboration you have, the quicker you could expedite things. Mm-hmm. I also believe that the model that we're working on our platform could be used in the IT sector, food incubators and other, because whenever you co-collaborate, you generally have more. So I would recommend to there's some great incubators out there. As I said, there's some that it's just bench space. You're not going to get a dedicated lab. There's some that are a little bit more financially, they may ask for a 5 or 10-year lease. You have to find the right one that fits your direction in your company. And I think location's important too. I mean, there's benefits of being in the city. There's benefits of being in the suburbs. You have to make that decision.
Right, and what's great about your spot, and what I've heard sort of from you quite frequently, is that you don't kick companies out.
Yeah, so that's the ecosystem. So if you're, from my travels, and there's 148 life sciences incubators out there, I believe J Labs and the Pennsylvania Biotechnology Center are only 2 incubators that don't kick companies out. The reason why we don't is if you're going to focus on an ecosystem, those senior companies help the younger companies. So we have, Flowmetric, Fox Chase Chemical Diversity Center, the Blumberg Institute are 3 senior companies in our center. That companies, we have a nonprofit. We have 9 labs in our center. So the smaller companies can come in, get guidance, get consultation. So I think that's really important. And the one thing I don't like in the industry is that sometimes some of these incubators take the IT model, which really in IT, 12 months to a half year, you can start really moving towards commercials. It's not like that in life sciences. Mm-hmm. So they will double the rents after a year, they'll double again after 3 years, and try to force you out. And I think in the science, or at least my experience with it, that's something that we don't really recommend at this time.
Yeah. And one thing that's great about the Discovery Labs campus is we're on 200 acres. So to the extent we would never kick anyone out. And in fact, they would be able to grow to their own building on our campus,
which is great,
and manufacture on the site. So it's been an incredible offering and very appealing from that perspective to be able to grow in place without having to deal with a lot of headaches with moving.
And I think another key, what I'm really excited about Discovery Labs too, which we have to some extent in Doylestown, but very small. I mean, we have IP attorneys on site to help out with the IP. We have banks to help out, different specialties. You're going to have basically everybody on site so that you don't have to go far. It's going to be, a modern day university for drug, expediting and moving things forward. So I think that's very exciting about what you guys can do at Discovery Labs.
Right. And I think in addition to having all the service offering in one place, we'll also have all the raw materials that we need, disposables that we might need for single-use processing, and equipment on site such that you can go through the entire supply chain on our site without having any bottlenecks that are being experienced along the way right now.
And I think we're going to have a sponsorship village at the Discovery Labs, which will have a lot of these services. But the colony, maybe you want to talk about that, because that's a tremendous idea.
Yeah, we're very excited about the colony, which was the brainchild of Brian O'Neill and some of our colleagues, is essentially the idea is to partner with iconic world-renowned scientists that have groundbreaking technologies, and we will help them to commercialize those products in a very efficient and effective way and provide all the funding that's necessary along the way as well.
We have another question from the chat room. It says, do you ever take equity as an alternative to just cash?
Yeah.
Yes. The answer is yes. The national average for equity in incubators, and that's nonprofit and for-profit, it's usually about 1% to 3% because you usually give services out. And we're in a very service-friendly and heavy model. So yeah, there are it's a company by company negotiation, but that's definitely something that as somebody who runs incubators and that we're very interested in helping the companies out, and if they don't have the cash, equity is a natural proposition.
Yeah, and that's the platform for the colony. Our other leg of the stool, so to speak, is infusing capital into these scientific ideas and groundbreaking technologies, and taking an equity position in those companies as well. And then I think in exchange, we certainly are very willing to work with companies that may have a limited cash, especially at the very early stage, in exchanging stock for services.
Yeah, and just to follow up on that, this would be a good time to talk about the Hatch Bio Fund and possibly the Go Philly Fund, because we're in the process of raising a $50 million fund. And I think the idea, what do early stage companies need the most and what do incubator companies need the most? It's money. So having a complementary fund associated with the incubator, I think, especially in this area, resources are very tight and it's very tough. There's not the amount of VC or capital that Boston, San Francisco, New York City has at this point. So we're in the process of raising that. We have a great CEO, Vlad Welko, who's met with a bunch of pharma companies, other interested investors, so that if we have this $50 million fund, we would only be looking at our 2 incubators at this time. Our goal is to replicate this model if we have success, hopefully at Discovery Labs. We'd love to be in all the major life sciences hubs, but this fund will allow money for Series A, Series B, seed funding. Of course, there would be some equity involved in that, but we really think, once again, going back to accelerating science and making things go faster in this region, I think the Hatch Bio Fund is going to be a huge part of that. And maybe you want to Go Philly Fund?
So apart from, we get part of the funding from the state. We also have partnerships with the counties. We invest their pension money on the counties' behalf, and the counties' idea behind this is to establish companies and generate jobs in that region. We also have partnerships with the universities where we raise money, where we can invest in the technologies that are coming out of these universities at the right time. We also have the regular investment can go up to 500,000 to $1 million in a lifetime of a company, but we realize that this is not enough. And also there are some strings attached, like if the company leaves the state, then they have to pay us back. So we raised this private fund, and right now we closed up to 20 million, is to invest in high growth companies in our portfolio. So this could be a great resource for the companies that are growing at a fast pace, and we can inject this money, but the companies has to come up with the term sheet from other VCs, and we invest them along with that.
We've talked co-investing at times too, so yeah, that's
Right.
something that we've discussed, and I think that's good for the region too.
Yeah.
There's certain companies and projects.
So the next question I have is, how do you decide whether companies are having the collaboration? Because life sciences, it's mostly about collaboration. In IT, we have a saying that 2 kids and a bag of Cheetos, they can start a company. But in life sciences, it's more about the collaboration, all the very high intensive resources. So how do you see that these companies are not having a difficulty accessing these resources in the incubator?
Sure. And just once again, using our incubator as an example, if your biology is your background and you need a chemist, that's it right away. That's how you can help each other out, be complementary to each other. Just we've had some entrepreneurs come in that were in pharma and they maybe were in business. They were scientists originally. They forgot how to use a microscope. There's different ways you can collaborate. We also have companies that have diagnostic services. There's Flowmetric, which is flow cytometry, but really looking at how the companies can cross-pollinate. So when we do that interview process, we do take a deep look at their science. So our president and co-founder, Dr. Block, really takes a look at that to see how will this mesh with the other companies. So I don't want to say some of it is, yes, it's science. Some of it is instinctual to see how they would play nice or work with the other companies. And some of it, I've done tours at our center for the incubator with 2 or 3 companies, and they're actually collaborating on the tour. So sometimes it's just getting the scientists together because they're always thinking and they're looking at other ways. It just, once again, our job is to get them together so that they have these discussions, which we will hopefully lead to collaboration.
Yeah. And I think not just in between the companies, but also with the service providers and the equipment providers, this industry changes at such a rapid pace. especially in cell and gene therapy where there's constant improvements in the manufacturing process. To get someone on, let's say, a PAL system, a PAL has an adherent bioreactor. The iCELLS 500 is a much sought after piece of equipment. And when you're doing it in different fashion in earlier stages in the development process, having to tech transfer that into a new process can be painstaking and take a long time. Whereas if you take the PAL's early stage equipment, like a nano, which is really a benchtop bioreactor, and you start to use that very early, it eases the path in future. So it's being able not only to interact with other companies, but also equipment providers that can explain to you what to do at the very early end so that your path forward is easier. And then I'd say what's very interesting about the design, I know you said it's not just how it looks, but it's the design of the campus. When we're talking about having light throughout and all of these things about the design, one of the incredible things about the design of our campus is that it's built in the round. So it encourages that collaboration. And we have all these collaboration zones in our atriums and our common areas, and we have a lot of on-site amenities that provide for that, including a fitness center, which includes a spin room and a yoga studio and all of those wonderful things. But then there's also coffee shops and restaurants and just areas for people to collaborate and communicate and commingle, all the C's, the vibes. And so it's really an incredible thing about the space sort of encouraging that. And I also think the funding is often married with certain milestones and de-risking events as you go. So I think to the extent that we can help the companies achieve and meet those milestones such that they're able to hit their capital goals. And then I would say recruiting is very hard. Talent is, unemployment is at record lows, as everybody knows, and in particular in life science, it's very tough. So I think having the right atmosphere and having a recruiting machine such that you're able to source, attract, and retaining talent is also very important by providing a cultural fit and a work environment that's fun, exciting, and challenging. Is always something that's very important. And we've partnered with Nucleus Careers, which is helping us source some of this talent. But I think being able to provide that to the companies in addition to funding would be very helpful.